I now want to get into the opening match here, which again was Solo Sikoa, Grayson Waller. And these are going to be the first two guys I kind of look at in a more extensive way. I've actually gone back and watched some stuff recently from both parties, but honestly, this singular match um, kind of explains who both are at this point in their careers, for better and worse. Um, so let's get into this. Now, this is a saying that we're going to return to. If you do not like it, tell me. But I think it could be fun with some of these folks who are kind of newer to the national stage. All right, let's start with old Grayson Waller. Now, the thing that will always be a trend with this is age is weird. Grayson Waller is 32. So we're not talking about a 19-year-old rookie here. He's 5 years in. He was previously Matty Wahlberg on the Australian circuit. I have previously talked about Grayson Waller at relative length. There was a whole running bit about me saying he's good. At the time, I didn't know he was good. He actually, I think, is pretty good. But, we had some fun with that. I like Grayson Waller. He did a pre-match promo here. I went back and watched one he did a couple weeks back in the open segment with Solo and Carmelo and all those guys. He is not bringing particularly impressive content to these promos. Now, if he's writing them purposely bad because he's a heel, God bless. If someone is getting paid to write these lines for him and they think they're good, not so good. But nonetheless, he's a dick, so I have no problem with his kind of like zingers being lame. I'm getting very good at writing lame zingers right now. So I thought I would note that, but his delivery is very good and very confident. There is a Miz comparison here that is more real than I initially realized, which is very funny, which we'll circle back to. All right, so promo is good. He certainly has a natural heel personality. His look is different. I don't know if I like it yet in terms of the like shooter, trunks and that whole deal. I'm not sure how I'm at on it, but it's certainly different, and there's something to be said for that. In ring, let's talk about this. So he's very good at the kind of in between heel touches. Everything he does, for the most part, that isn't the moves themselves, comes with a very nice heel flavor. He sells like a heel, meaning at no point when he gets the shit kicked out of him is he any which way sympathetic. Instead, he is like actively fun to watch get his ass kicked. And that's one of the best compliments you can give a heel. He's very good at that. When he's in control, he's good at keeping the crowd, keeping them moving in the direction he wants them to and being a heel. And I really have no complaints about any piece of what he does in that regard. My big concern is while he has all the mannerisms and, he's selling like a heel, as I just said, and he has this personality that's naturally kind of villainous. He has an issue that our friend, the aforementioned Miz, I believe, has struggled with for many, many years. I do not know if he has figured out how to really be a heel once it's time to shift the momentum, Instead, he actually has an extreme case of it where I think his offense is almost completely exclusively babyface offense. And he has not quite, for me anyway, figured out a way of executing it in a way that connects with the personality and the character that he's portraying. Is that a massive deal-breaking issue for most of the audience? No. Is it something that frustrates me? Yes. Some of his stuff is like he's playing a heel and he has to stop for a minute to do one of his cool moves and then he can go back to being a heel. It doesn't flow in that way. I think it's pretty clear that they're disconnected. And some of his offense is pretty innovative and cool, so I'm not saying it sucks. I'm just saying that, I think there's a world in which you can find stuff that better fits who he is as like a villain and, an overall asshole. Now, you can frame it, fine the other way where it's just like, he's just cocky, that's fine. But I think it kind of undercuts his heat a little bit, honestly, inside the match itself. He always gets it back with his mannerisms and stuff, but I just think that's the thing that stood out to me especially in this singles with Solo. The tag match a couple weeks ago, he was a lot more restrained against Apollo and Solo, but that did stand out to me. That's something I think Miz has struggled with. Um, Definitely something that Seth freaking Rollins, to Joe's point in the chat, has struggled with. Dolph Ziggler struggled with that for a stretch. So, you know, it's something you can fix, but it is a thing. I like this point from Demon Grin, who says heels with babyface offense have to be super athletic to make it look cocky. I love that point. Basically, the idea that if it comes across as effortless or easy, it's like it rubs you the wrong way, how naturally it comes to them, right? I don't think he's at that point, unfortunately. So that's something that really did stand out to me. And for that reason, I didn't think his control segment was particularly good, but it was mostly fine. I just thought he left a lot of space and he mostly operated in a middle ground between like vicious physical heel and full like chicken shit, sticky stoogey heel. And I think he kind of needs to figure out which of those best fits who he's going to be. Which again, 5 years is not actually a long time at all. He's older than some of the rookies, but he's 5 years in pro wrestling. I'm sure that fucking all of the dudes at PC know the stuff I'm saying, so it's not a big deal. But anyway, more of the same, I'd say, in that aforementioned tag match with Apollo and Co. He's a good talent. In terms of ceiling, I think he has a pretty clear one above him, frankly. And there's no shame in that. I think he kind of maxes out to me as like a mid card heel champion, which is a good role, right? That's a hell of a role. I think his biggest strength from a WWE perspective is that he's going to be able to give them TV time. And the kind of TV time that doesn't die in front of live crowds. That's important, And I think the Miz comparison is a blessing and a curse in some ways because let's be fair to the Miz, that dude gives them TV time. I mean, that talk show segment they run over and over and over again. So I think Grayson Waller can be that kind of character for them. They go to and they get time out of, and you can kind of beat him over and over because he's going to get his heat back by being a dick. That's valuable. That makes me pretty confident he's going to have a decent run in WWE. Ceiling, as I said, mid-card heel champion. I think his floor, honestly, though, is very useful irritant, on WWE TV. And that's a role they always have gone to and got time out of. So there you go. Grayson Waller, he's a nice talent. All right, let's talk about Solo Sikoa. Now, I've seen takes all over the place on Solo Sikoa. And doing this was actually the first time I've really watched him at all, really, in terms of, close. I mean, I've seen little bits and pieces. He was in that ladder match and he looked pretty green, but it's the first time I'm really watching him kind of closely. So he is, of course, the younger brother of the Usos, Sefa Fatu. You may recall about a year or so ago, I think it was actually maybe a couple of years now, he posted a picture of himself with the AEW logo, and there was a lot of belief that he was like going to be coming into their territory. There was talk at one point, I think, of him being like a Cody Open Challenge guy. Again, not a kid by any means, 29. He is a 4-year pro, so the timeline I just laid out, that may explain it to you. I think maybe he was getting, I would assume perhaps maybe slightly impatient with, the lack of movement on the WWE front. He was seemingly hinting at an AEW move. Obviously, it didn't happen. Here he is now as Solo Sikoa, which is a name that I've regularly changed my mind on whether it's good or bad. I have decided it's good for this particular show. I may change my mind by tomorrow. Anyway, again, I watched other stuff, but I do think this match pretty much sums up who he is. Immediately, I love Solo's look. I really do. A pal of mine on social said it was like they'd taken a picture of Mark Hunt and used that as inspiration. And that is like immediate win for me. That rules. I don't know if any of you know what that means, but it fucking rules. If you do, you'll pop. He looks cool. He has the shooter trunks too, but I think it really fits his frame. And he looks like a badass. I think his look is awesome. Absolutely jumps off the screen to me. Now, he has this thing that I personally, educated guess here, but I got the sense watching him that there are people that are very much tinkering with his vibe in terms of I think he has like a really cool demeanor, and he has like a natural intensity of someone that could beat the fuck out of you. I think they're really trying to like drum into his head like babyface fire, because he's doing this thing where he's like revving up and like firing up in a way where it's kind of it doesn't. I don't think it's necessary for him. You know, I really don't. He's not a guy that needs to be out there frothing at the mouth in rage because he's so fired up. Like he's fucking got a cool demeanor to him, man. He's a guy who his toughness can be a lot more understated than that. You know, I think he has a badass presence and aura without kind of screaming it through the screen. I mean, leave that to the long-haired dudes on, in the underneath. I think he's got a kind of cool edge now. Speaking as such, frankly, Mark Hunt is a great example of that. That dude was never fired up, and that was the part of what made him so terrifying, was because he was fucking chill. I'm not saying Solo should go to that extreme, but I do think there's something to be said for it. So I got the sense watching him that people are trying to, drum in like these old school, this is the way it needs to be. If he ever sees this, absolutely ignore me and listen to Terry Taylor, whoever, but I would let it go. There's this hilarious thing that always happens with the Samoan dynasty is like they have like they always have like the same offensive package, and Solo absolutely has his older brother's like offensive stylings. Like there's a couple of differences, but there's a lot of overlap, and there's nothing wrong with it. It just pops me. He's very much embraced the using his head as an offensive weapon, Samoan trope, which is always fun. His stuff looks pretty good. They don't look great by any means yet, but he's 4 years, but it does look good. I think he does a nice job of kind of spacing his stuff out and being intense and being physical without like crowding his own stuff. Like his stuff is nicely spaced out where each thing has its own point to land. Again, as he gets better and that clothesline looks a little bit more violent, and that knee lift, like then it'll kind of be more effective. But he has a very natural rhythm to me. I will say that it was clear to me they give him a pretty extensive shine here at the start of this match because he was losing to Grayson Waller. And they protected him, but he was losing. So they give him like a really extended shine in the first act. I think that was their way of like, just make sure that people know this guy's a fucking badass. They love him in that building too. So I will say I thought that kind of exposed that his offense probably hasn't got the variety. It doesn't pack the punch necessary to fill that kind of time. Here's the thing with that. Like, the only way he's going to get better in that regard is by doing it. Ideally, it maybe is in front of 650,000 people, but he's so kind of polished overall. I don't think it matters for him. Like with Lash Legend, which was my second, it's not that kind of thing. I'm really nitpicking to point that out. Genuinely, he seems totally at ease on TV. And the biggest issue I had was that he couldn't feel like a 6-minute shine with compelling offense. There's a lot of dudes that have been on TV for a long time that can't do that. So that was one of the only issues I have with his work beyond just like stuff needing to go from a 7 to a 9 to a 10, But I will also say he strikes, like the Usos have done a great job. If you go back and watch old Usos matches and then watch them in the last like 4 or 5 years, they have very much found like their lane of like strikes, and they have like the I was going to say the Kane uppercut, but I guess Kane's kind of been removed from our wrestling dictionary now. But the big sweeping uppercut, the kicks, and he does all of that stuff well, but he's still raw enough that he throws in some kind of like loose right hands and some sort of. To me, I think he would honestly be better just going in that one direction because I think that stuff looks best. Like the super kicks, when he's done those in angles, they get great reactions. They fucking look good. So some of the strikes need tightening, but I actually think the answer is just kind of binning some and just picking a more specific sort of, region of the striking category, so to speak. But in ring, I honestly only have positives. Again, let me stress, folks, I'm not saying he's having 4-star matches. I'm not saying he's great or any of that stuff. I'm saying that, like, he's very, very, very polished for where he's at, experience level-wise. And the biggest challenge for him is just adding some, like, snap to stuff, some extra flair and spice stuff. That's a very good place to be at, honestly. So, there you go. Solo Sikoa. A couple other things here as I went back in time. I will answer this question in a moment about AEW Dynamite. That's what we're going to be doing next. So bear with me, folks. Couple other things. So I went back that time where there was the tag match with Apollo Crews that I've been mentioning multiple times. By the way, if you haven't seen that, that's like a lot of fun, that match. I even know that Dave Meltzer loved to give 3 3/4, which is hilarious. So on that show, Solo was in the opening segment. This is the June 7th edition. He's in the opening segment, they get some heat on him, and then backstage he does like an interview where he's like on the medical thing and he's like fired up. I was really impressed by what he did here. He has that kind of familiar authenticity and confidence that honestly it took the Usos a long time to capture. He's got it. I don't think he's a guy I'd have talked too much in like a live setting because I just think it waters him down and makes him just another guy. The backstage interview was, I thought, really strong. He's a natural on TV. Like, he's someone I've seen people say like he could be on the main roster, and I haven't dug into it particularly, but I absolutely believe that. I mean, I think he would fit in comfortably. He was strong in the tag match. He was obviously helped by the fact that when I was talking about his offense a minute ago, Apollo Crews doesn't have that issue. His offense is spectacular, so that helped him in terms of the team setting. That being said, I loved his hot tag. He has good energy. He's naturally physical, and he has, again, the frame and being a kind of bigger guy, but he's short and stocky. I think it's a really cool dynamic for a kind of badass upper mid-card babyface. I like it a lot. His selling was fine. They got a little bit of heat on him at one point. He had some nice hoe spots along the way. I liked what I saw of Solo Sikoa. A lot of people that I'm very good friends with are not too big on Solo Sikoa. He seems to be somewhat polarizing. He's getting over with that small building, which, listen, folks, is that getting over at MSG? No, but something be said for it. Go over in front of the audience you're working in front of. Nothing wrong with that. So I like what I'm seeing. Here's where I'm at in terms of ceiling, though. I like him more than Grayson Waller, personally. I am torn on his WWE future. His biggest strength, and I mean this not as a slight, it's just being kind of objective. One of his biggest strengths is the obvious connection. There is an easy angle that any old dipshit can write him into right now on SmackDown. That's a massive help because they struggle greatly to fit people into their system without, just sort of throwing it in and quitting. He shouldn't have that problem because there's a natural fit for him, a natural role for him. My worry with him compared to Grayson Waller is he is someone that I think his skill set is much more reliant on good presentation and good booking than Grayson Waller's. Grayson Waller can go 0-10, and because he's going to be a stooge heel and he's going to be an annoying heel, he'll stay on the TV show and get some heat and give them TV time. You need to give Solo some protection and some edge because otherwise I don't know if he's going to have the same degree of versatility for you in terms of being a useful loser. Now, again, if there wasn't the obvious connection, that would concern me more than it does, but it does concern me. His ceiling, I think, is higher than Grayson Waller's. I would not say by any means, though, he is like a lock main event guy because I think he needs to progress a lot in ring. As much as his frame and such pops me and I like his look, he's probably going to need to get to a point where his in-ring is great, which obviously 4 years he isn't there yet. And, look, some guys do. I don't think he's there yet. I think he's pretty damn good, but he's great by any means. So he's going to need to make that step, I think, to be a top guy. I wouldn't assume that. I'm just saying. My thing is, and I think this is a compliment to where he's at, I think he could be on Dynamite, on SmackDown. He may have been on Dynamite once. It almost happened, I guess. But I think he could be on SmackDown and be the mid-card champion next week, and I don't think he'd be out of place at all. I think he's a very natural television presence, and that's a hell of a compliment, and that's one of the most important things you can have. So I would say his ceiling is a smidge above that. I'm not confident in saying it's like WrestleMania main event guy or any of that stuff. I'm not. But I think it's more possible than it is for Grayson Waller. His floor, however, I do think is lower. I think without some booking and some effort in terms of giving him this kind of cool edge that he has in NXT, I do fear that Solo kind of fall away. So there you go, folks. Just some thoughts mean, it's a pretty long segment. I apologize you wasn't interested in that, but just some sweeping thoughts on two NXT prospects who had a pretty nice match last night. I'm going to be doing this again with AEW Dark guys, with indie guys, with MLW, maybe Ring of Honor eventually, Impact, whoever. Guys that kind of find their way. I think it's fun to kind of look at where they're at right now. And we can always come back to this and, explore their progress, their stagnation, whatever it may be. I don't know. And maybe some of these people will prove me right or wrong. That'd be fun too. So there you go. Grayson Waller, solo Sikoa. That about wraps up that